Welcome to my talk on Poseidon. So apparently we're going to have a Poseidon adventure. Hopefully, the talk won't sink under its own weight, but we'll see what happens. And speaking of sinking, unfortunately, the story of Poseidon is one of him starting off pretty eminent, very important, and then eventually he gets watered down. Uh, he becomes, unfortunately, less and less as time goes on, which is unfortunate. So, what I want you to do is I know we have certain perceptions of gods and goddesses, and I'm going to mention gods and goddesses in association with Poseidon. We have to remember that how we understand these gods and goddesses will change over a period of time. Okay, so you got to be a little bit flexible. So you're going to be hearing about Athena, and you'll be hearing things like Athena is the daughter of Poseidon. What? And they go, no, that throws it all off. It's like, okay. So what we have to do is we have to go through this in an evolutionary sense, right? So we have to go through it slowly and gradually and see how things change as we go along. Is this making sense? Right? Okay. So, okay, of course, Poseidon was the son of Kronos and Rhea. These are the Titans, right? And of course, his brothers, Zeus and Hera, right? And they divided um, the world into three parts in the later versions of the story, right? You have, of course, Zeus gets the sky, Poseidon gets the sea, and Hades gets the underworld, right? So that's how it kind of that's how we understand it today, but that's not necessarily how it really was in the beginning. So to find the origins of Poseidon, we have to delve back, way back when, to the time of the Minoans. Here we go. Now, when it comes to linear A, the majority of linear A, which happens to be the writing system of the Minoans, has not been deciphered. However, we can learn aspects of linear A from linear B. And linear B, of course, is connected to the Mycenaeans, who are the Greeks. And from that, we can discern in many ways Poseidon and Poseidon as understood by the Minoans and how that changes over a period of time during the Mycenaeans. So it is kind of gradual, right? Now we got to remember that the Minoans are not Indo-Europeans. The Mycenaeans are Indo-Europeans and they are Greeks, right? They are those who are mentioned, as I said recently, who attacked the towers of Ilium uh, for in the purpose of Helen, whose face launched 1,000 ships. We know the story, right? But of course, when we go back to the Minoans, we do know a lot about Minoan goddesses. We do. And even from the Mycenaeans. And this is not a talk on Minoan goddesses, but just know that there's quite a few of them. And in fact, the majority of the deities worshipped by the Minoans were female, were goddesses. Now, there happens to be every now and then this diminutive uh, god that appears here and there, and you see this in the frescoes. But we do know that even though the Minoans worship many goddesses, there happens to be one god that does have prominence, and this god will eventually become known as Poseidon. So Poseidon goes all the way back to the time of the Minoans. He was the one powerful male deity that has some kind of significance, right? And he was, however, connected not to just the sea. This Minoan Poseidon will be connected to the sky, the realm of the sky, the realm of the earth, which is inclusive of the sea, and the realm of the underworld. So he has a tripartite division of powers. Does this make sense? This is why he gets the title Earth Shaker, right? He's an Earth Shaker, right? So we see this, and of course, the word Earth Shaker will become in linear B in the Mycenaean writing. It will be I, na, si, da, one, right? And of course, the da is the part that's da, which is the earth, right? So this is the NAC Dione, right? The one who is the shaker of the earth. There you have it. So we understand it's interesting because you're going to see these kinds of ideas within goddesses, right? So many goddesses will have a sky, an a earth, and an underworld aspect. But going back to this time, you're going to see this in connection to gods, right? Okay, so we take a look and we realize that uh, within the iconography, it appears that the sky aspect in general, and then related to Poseidon, that the images that are often shown are of the sun and moon. So you have images of the sun and moon, right? When it comes to connections with the earth, that is the bull, so you have the idea of the bull, Bull, right? So that's connected there, right? So, and the earth will then extend to the realm of the underworld. Okay, so it is a fascinating idea, right? And I'm reminded that later on, when it comes to goddesses, you're going to have, she who is above the earth, she is Selene. When within it, she is Artemis. When below it, she is Persephone, right? So you have this there. But we have to understand again the tripart division of Poseidon is apparent. Now let's go a little bit further. It is interesting that in archaeology we take a look at various temples, and temples from the Minoan period. Some of them have also a tripartite division that may reflect worship of Poseidon in these holy places. So you're going to see, three different rooms. The underworld, as represented by the color red. The earth, as represented by the color yellow, yellow or ochre, and the heavens, as represented by the color blue. Right. So we see this even represented in the frescoes at Knossos, right? And we see around them rows of sacral horns along the cornices, and two pairs of sacral horns inside each cella. And we think, well, maybe that's connected to the bull. The bull, again, is very prominent uh, within Minoan iconography. Sometimes we find that they'll have a bull's head, like a Knossos, right? And there'll be the disc of the sun that is placed upon its forehead. Okay, so so we'll go a little bit further, right? One interesting image that I want to talk about is a clay seal that was discovered at Kydonia. This clay seal, it shows this Minoan seal shows a god with a prominent staff in his hand, and he is situated on the top of a tower. Um, that maybe is possibly a tower of a temple. It is positioned over this interesting cityscape. And in this image, there are waves that appear to be crashing against it and the city itself. And at the lower part of the tower, and what looks like possibly city gates. Now, there's lots of interpretations of what this could mean. Many scholars will say that as opposed to waves just hitting this tower and this city, or in a calm way, that this is a tsunami, right? That these are mighty waves, and that these waves are being destructive, and they will refer to this as a representation, possibly, of the destruction of the Minoan civilization with the eruption of Thera. You have this huge eruption in which much of the Minoan civilization is destroyed, which allows for the Mycenaeans to arrive. So a few will say that this is a depiction of this. Others will say, well, it still shows Poseidon in a powerful position in connection to the land and the sea. In fact, he is standing on the tower in a position where it looks like he's connected to the sky. And then, of course, you have the sea around it. So there's still, again, a sky aspect to Poseidon. Well, good news in certain ways, those ideas, this is how we trace ideas. The formation of this god, Poseidon, in imagery, even though we did not have the writing linear A, this imagery translates over into the Mycenaean period, where we can read linear B. So there's this transformation. And so much of what we learn about the Minoans, we do gain from the Mycenaeans, because the Mycenaeans, for a period of time, carry on some of the legacies of Poseidon to their time. Okay, so there's a sense of continuation. So but the bull is important. The bull is important in all ways. So the bull represents Poseidon. It's kind of implanted in your head. The bull is connected to Poseidon in connection to the realm of the earth. And so, what are you going to sacrifice to Poseidon? You're going to sacrifice bulls, both black and white bulls. So, we'll learn more about this in detail when we get to the Mycenaeans. But let's talk more about the Minoans, right? We talked about the bull aspect. We got to remember that when we take a look at the frescoes, we realize that a important event for the Minoans is something that's called bull jumping. The jumping over the bull. We see, so pretty interesting. So basically, maybe you have a male or female an athlete, possibly an acrobat, maybe, who will run towards a bull. I don't know why anybody wants to do that. Grab the bull by the horns and flip their body over the bull and land on their feet on the other side. It seems to be a very strange action to do. That double dare you to jump over the bull. That's a lot of bull. Well, maybe so, but there it is, right? And so maybe you have, of course, this is a ritual that's connected to also Poseidon, right? Maybe it was an ordeal, a rite of passage for young Minoan girls as well as boys, maybe, and you had to undergo through this because of initiation. We're not so sure, but there seems to be dancing about these bulls. So it's interesting because there seems also to be this idea of bull fighting, and it's a ritualistic sense. One thinks about the Spanish bullfighting, right? For instance, people say, well, this is maybe a theater of cruelty. But again, from their perspective, It seemed to be done, even if it's for sports, in a ritualistic way, and maybe perhaps a serious way. Well, a remnant of Poseidon in connection to the bull moves down through Greek mythology from the period of the Minoans, and we can detect that. And we're going to go there right now. So, what happens is as follows: uh, a remnant of the Minoan bull story related to Poseidon is found in the story of Pasiphae, 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 right? Or, of course, is that she mates with a white bull and gives birth to the Minotaur. Okay, so here's the story. I'll just tell you a little bit more dragged out version of it, right? So what happens is the story goes is that Libya had by Poseidon two sons. One, his name was Belos, and the other is Agenor. Now, Belos went on to reign over the Egyptians, but Agenor, he went to Phoenicia and he married a certain Telepassa. And as a result, he begat a daughter known as Europa. Now, you got to remember already, okay, already at this point, you have Poseidon in her lineage. Now, what happens is they have, as we go along here, uh, and they have three sons, Cadmus, Phoenix, and Helix. But some say, what happens is that the story goes, and I'm going to say this: Zeus. We know the story was Zeus, right? That Zeus loved her and turned himself into a tame bull, and then he mounted her on his back and conveyed her through the sea to the island of Crete. There, Zeus bedded with her, and she bore Minos, Serphaden, and Rhodamanthes. Now, I want to say something. Well, Dr. Rito, you just mentioned this is Zeus. This is not Poseidon, so it's Zeus with Europa. Ah, but originally it wasn't Zeus. Originally, it was Poseidon. Oh, it gets more interesting. We'll go into reasons of that in a little bit. So we'll go there. Okay, so now let's go back. We have there Zeus bed with her, and she bore Minos, Serphidim, and Rhapsodontis, right? Now, the very fact that Zeus takes Europa back to Crete, which Crete, of course, is the center of the Minoan civilization, is an echo of an earlier idea. And as I said, it was not Poseidon. Sorry, it was not Zeus, but it was Poseidon. But they replaced it by the sky god a little bit later. So let's go a little bit further than this. Okay, so now what happens is, okay, Europa is now on Crete, and she has sons, right? She's got three sons that are betrothed by Zeus, who's really Poseidon. And so what happens is that Europa meets Asterius, and Asterius falls in love with her, and agrees to bring up her children. Now, when these children grow up, so basically the Minos Sarpedon and Rhapsodontis, when they grow up, they start to quarrel amongst each other. They love these three sons loved a boy by the name of Meletus, who's the son of Apollo by Aria. And as what happens is that Minos, right? We get the word Minoan for Minos, right? Minos went to war and basically beat off his brothers. But what will happen is Meletus also is scared away. Meletus from the realm of Crete, lands in Caria and found a city there called Miletus after himself. Now, what's interesting about this is that it turns out that Miletus on the coastline of Ionia, of Asia Minor, was settled by the Minoans. So we're talking about a reflection of the idea of the Minoans through the story going from Crete and settling on the coast of Asia Minor. Now, what happens also is that Poseidon, we talked about that other brother, right? He went to the war against the Lycians and he becomes king of Lycia. And against the Lycians are also oftentimes connected with the Minoans, as well as the Carians. So we have this, this connection, right? So that you have, in a sense, reflected through this mythology, Minos, who will win the day as of the three brothers on Crete. You're going to have a reference, in a sense, to the settlement or the expansion of the Minoans to the western and southern coast of Asia Minor. Well, Minos now is in Crete, and he passed various laws, and he falls in love. Who does he fall in love with? Her name is Pasiphae, the daughter of the sun, as well as, and so what happens is that he falls in love with her. Okay, so meanwhile, Asterius dies childless, and so who's going to be the king of Crete? The king of Crete, well, Minos wants to be king of Crete, right? Because, dad died, so Minos should be the next one, and he wants to reign. But his claim was opposed. So he alleged that he received the kingdom from the gods. And as proof of that, he prayed for the gods to support him. Well, so he sacrificed to guess who? The god Poseidon, right? He prayed that a bull might appear from the depths and that he would take this bull and sacrifice the bull when it appeared. So Poseidon listened. And so Poseidon then brings a bull. This bull emerges from the depths of the sea. And King Minos goes, look, this is validation. I am to be the ruler of Crete. And once again, the name Minos is connected to the word Minoans, and this is connected to the Minoan stories, obviously changed and filtered through as a result of, telling a telephone, right? Somebody tells a story, and then they whisper a story, tells another person, another person, and so forth. So the story's going to change as time goes on, but you still have this idea, right? Well, so, but what Minos does, he just thinks this bull is just too beautiful to sacrifice. So he doesn't want to sacrifice Poseidon's bull, even though he promised to do so. Well, so he finds another bull to sacrifice instead, supposedly being Poseidon's bull, and he puts Poseidon's bull amongst his own herds. And as a result of this showing, this evidence, he obtains dominion of the sea, and he extends his rule over almost all of the islands. So we have now supposedly the expansion of the Minoans, as blessed by Poseidon. But guess what? Poseidon's pretty angry. He didn't sacrifice the bull. He didn't listen. And so what Poseidon did is he made this animal, this bull, savage and mean. But he did something else that's rather strange. He put within Minos's wife the desire, the Pasiphae, the desire to have a passion for this bull. She falls in love with this bull that was brought from the depths by Poseidon. She falls in love and she wants to mate with this bull as opposed to, her husband Minos, right? And so she finds an architect by the name of Daedalus, and he had been banished from Athens for murder, so it's reputable. Oh, and he has him construct a wooden cow, a cow made out of wood on wheels, a cow on wheels, a wooden cow on wheels. Just got to let that sink in for a little bit, right? And it was all hollowed out, but it had real cow skin around it, right? And then he made it so that she could go inside the bowl and be in the proper position. And then this bull, sorry, within the cow, sorry, so made it so that she could go into this cow and in the proper position. And so this wooden cow is then wheeled out into the field before the bull of Poseidon. The bull of Poseidon is full of desire and mounts upon the wooden cow, right? And as a result, she's impregnated by the bull. I know it's a bunch of bull, right? And gave birth to Asterius. Now you're going to Asterius. Hey, isn't that the name of the prince of Crete, right? Who married Europa? You know, Minos's mother and her mother-in-law, right? But yeah, that's true. But it's just repetition. It's the same name twice. He gave birth to Asterius, who is also known as the Minotaur. The Minotaur. Of course, the word Minotaur is a combination between Minos, which means, of course, obviously, and Tauros, which means bull. So this is bull of Minos. Now, this offspring, he had a face of a bull, but the rest of him, he was human. And of course, in compliance with the oracle, because Minos is he's panicking here. He's not sure what exactly to do. What his wife did, and this resulting, half, well, human, half bull. So what happens is he consults the oracle, and the oracle tells him to shut up this bull man, this minotaur, and put him within what's called a labyrinth. Now, of course, the labyrinth that is created, once again, the architect Daedalus is asked to help design it, and it was a chamber that with it has tangled windings, perplexing the outward way. So it's a labyrinth, right? We'll go into the labyrinth word in a few minutes. So you're having these early stories, right? And once again, you could see very clearly that Poseidon is associated in the minds of the Mycenaeans and, of course, later on the ancient Greeks with the Minoan civilization. Right? So the Minoan civilization, Poseidon, we'll see more evidence. And one of the biggest ones, obviously, is the story of Atlantis. Now, we're not going to spend a lot of time talking about Atlantis, though it's of interest to many of you here. But many scholars will connect the stories of Atlantis with the Minoan civilization, and of course the subsequent fall, because they both fall under the sense there's a disaster and they go under the waves of the sea, and they both do that. Now, so let's go there. Well, the story, interesting enough, is Atlantis is associated very strongly with, again, Poseidon. Poseidon is very important, central to any story that's connected to the lost subcontinent of Atlantis. So it's first mentioned in Plato's Timaeus. Plato talks about it. He talks about how this power came forth out of the Atlantic Ocean. For in those days, the Atlantic was navigatable. And there was an island situated in front of the straits, which are by you called the Pillars of Hercules. I'm reading him. The island was larger than Libya and Asia put together, and was the way to other islands, and from these you might pass to the whole of the opposite continent, which surrounds the true ocean. So he says it's a wonderful empire. Uh, in fact, he mentions the fact that Atlantis subjugated, specifically, this is you have to remember this, uh, North Africa, and he specifically mentions Libya. Libya will come up over and over again in connection to Poseidon, uh, and you're going to see this in a little bit. But it says that this civilization, the Atlantis civilization, dominated Libya. So much of course, that's in connection to North Africa, specifically next to Egypt, right? It also mentions the fact that this Atlantis also goes to the area known as Tyrrhenia. Tyrrhenia, that would be uh, uh, um, uh, Corsica, Sardinia, and the western coast of Italy. So Atlantis then has much of the western Mediterranean as part of their domain, or possibly even further. There's lots of views on this. I mean, quite a few. Plato in his Critias will expand upon the story. As for the position of Atlantis, some people hold that in general, it was northwest of Egypt all the way to Spain, as I just described it. Some people say that no, it was northeast of Egypt, and it went north to south to the Black Sea. Others will say it's around Gibraltar. Others will say that it's northwest Africa. You can see that with the Libya reference, right? A few will say it's Atlantic Ocean, the western section. Others will say it's the northern section. People will say it's America, and other people say it's Antarctica. Nobody seems to agree, but it's all there, right? Well, according to Plato's Critias, once again, he will repeat much of the same information about the position of Atlantis. So we have Atlantis in two different sources of Plato, not just one. And it's referred back to that Solon, the lawgiver, was the first to hear about the story as he was visiting the Egyptians. He went amongst the Egyptian priests and scribes and was asking about the mysteries, and that's where the revelation of Atlantis came about. Okay, so what happened is this: is that they talk about the fact that the world is distributed amongst the gods, and for his allotment, Poseidon was given Atlantis, and he begat children from a mortal woman. In fact, the story goes is that uh, well, what happens is that he does make this area fertile with his powers. Well, let's go a little bit further. Once upon a time, we'll go here a little bit more. There was a primeval man of the country. His name is Evanor, and his wife named Lysippa, and they had an only daughter that was known as Clito. Uh, when the maiden had reached the right age, Poseidon fell in love with her and had relations with her. And what will happen then is obviously she's going to get pregnant. But what he does is that he breaks the ground and encloses a hill around her. So he made the domain of his beloved at the center, and then he creates this mound, this artificial mound that circles around this place, this which will become the main palace where they live. And then what he does is he makes strangely enough, he who is apparently a sky as well as a sea as well as a land god. What he does is he circles that domain of where the palace and the city is to be with a canal of water. And then there's land after that. And then what he does is he cuts then another canal of water that circles around. And then after that, more land. So you have, in a sense, concentric circles, and it's every other, it's land, water, and there you have it, right? So the center island, he brings up two springs, one with warm water, the other cold water. So you got hot and cold muddy water uh, in the springs that are in the center mountainous section. So you have this mountain circle in it. You have a city there, and obviously you have the palace. And then she becomes pregnant, as I mentioned, and begets five pairs of twin male children. And then what he does is he makes the oldest of the pairs the main king, and then he divides Atlantis into 10 portions, and with the other kings, or I should say, like princes, in charge of each one. And once again, it mentions that this kingdom spreads all the way to Egypt. Okay, so uh, much of this land has precious minerals and deposits, and one is called uh, Ori calcium, which is like the supposed metal of an orange golden alloy. It's kind of brass-like. Maybe it's some people have lots of theories on this. There was a shipwreck, a Roman shipwreck found in 2015 uh, near Sicily that supposedly had some of this ore, and it's basically 80% copper, 50% zinc, and the nickel, lead, and iron. But it was believed, according to Pliny the Younger, I mean, the mines were exhausted, but the elder, excuse me, Pliny the Elder, but it was believed that this metal is magical. You have to use, in order to make it, create it, need some kind of alchemy. So you're going to have this magical connection, in relation to the Atlantis civilization. Okay, so moving right along, as I said, there was a palace in the interior of the citadel, and it was constructed with a temple dedicated to Pluto and a temple dedicated to Poseidon. But it remained inaccessible, except it was separated with a wall of gold. But there's an interesting ritual I want to bring up. Poseidon's own temple, which was a stadium in length, you know, and half a stadium in width, was very tall, and it was described as having a very strange, barbaric appearance. What happens is that the outside was pinnacles were covered with gold as well as silver. The interior was roofed in ivory, and there was an image of the god himself, and he was standing in a chariot, and he's in a sense a charioteer of six winged horses, and it was huge. In fact, it was so big it supposedly touched the roof of the building. It also showed this depiction had 100 nereids riding dolphins. And so, of course, according to this story, supposedly Poseidon's already connected to horses, and he's already connected to dolphins, right? So, as you can understand, this is that the very center to the mythology of Atlantis is Poseidon, right? Well, one last story about Atlantis and Poseidon. That Atlantis was governed by various laws set by Poseidon himself. These laws were inscribed by the first kings on a mighty pillar made of ori calcium, which we just talked about, which was situated in the very middle of the island at the temple Poseidon. And what happened is that every fifth and then sixth day, I'm sorry, every fifth and sixth year, alternatively, because they wanted to make sure they respected odd and even numbers. So after 5 years and then every 6 years, all the kings would gather together here, and they consult about their common interests. Now, on top of this, there were bulls. Hey, here we get the bulls. There were bulls. These bulls had free range of the temple. So you got these bulls moving about the temple, right? And these bulls are connected directly to Poseidon. So the 10 kings, every 5 and then 6 years, are brought into the temple and they're left alone. And they offer prayers to the gods, specifically to Poseidon. They pray that they may capture a victim, a bull, that is acceptable to Poseidon to be sacrificed. So in this ritual, they hunted the bull, but they had to hunt the bull, get this, without weapons, but with staves and nooses. They had to rope it. There's aspects of this that happens to remind me of bullfighting. Do you see it? Right? And the bull was then caught, led up to the pillar, had its throat obviously cut, and then the blood then fell upon the sacred inscription. Right? So there you have it. And then, so you have the bull conception. Pretty amazing stuff, right? So you could see, uh, whatever the origin, some people will say the Atlantis civilization didn't exist. It's pure mythology. Some other people say it's the Minoans. Certainly, there's lots of ways of looking at this. Uh, some people say, well, we know for a fact. Look at the Minoan civilization, the Minoans, by evidence of archaeology, their domains stretched not only in the area of the Greek islands, not only the coast of Asia Minor, the Ionian coast, which is now known as Turkey, not only along the Black Sea, but we can trace Minoan artifacts all the way into Libya. The Minoans, we know, got to Libya. We also find artifacts of the Minoans in Sicily, southern Italy, Corsica, Sardinia. We find their evidence of them all the way to the Straits Gibraltar. Maybe it's the Straits of Hercules, right? We find it there in Cadiz and other places. We find Minoan pottery all the way out to the Canary Islands. So we know the Minoans were there. So maybe we know they were in the western part of the Mediterranean. So that's a possibility. Or some other people say, well, maybe they were neighbors of the Minoans. Of course, you have these strange dates thrown by Plato, 9,000 years earlier, which is very highly doubtful. But there you have it. Okay, but whatever it is, some of the main features of Poseidon are in these stories, right? You have this idea that he is associated with the sacrifice of the bulls. We have he is connected to dolphins, right? You have that, and at this point, he is a god of the sea, but he's also a god of the sky and god of the underworld. And this idea of tripartite division takes a long time to wear off. It's going to be a long journey to go through this change. Okay, well, we find also images of the double axe. The double axe, we find them in the hands of both Poseidon and Zeus. We find it, of course, a double axe within the Minoan context. It's sometimes painted over, guess what? A bull's head. It has been theorized that maybe the double axe was used to slaughter bulls. It's interesting because the Hittite weather god, Tishub, right, is depicted with a lightning bolt in one hand and a double axe in the other, who kind of combines the aspects of Zeus and Poseidon together. There is a certain Zeus known as Zeus Lambrandius. Zeus Lambrandius is from the Zeus is connected to Lambrandia, which is an area. And this Zeus carried a sacred lotus tip scepter. And we know, of course, the word uh, Labrandius is connected to the word labris, which is the word for double X. It's the word for double X. But it's interesting because that same root, labra, right, is the same root as the word labyrinth. So you got this double axe that's connected to the bull, which of course is connected to Poseidon. But and then of course this double axe is connected also to the concept of a labyrinth. And we can go different places on this, but you got to realize that what's going to happen often is that Poseidon will be replaced by Zeus when Poseidon is no longer associated with the sky above. He's going to lose that connection, uh, and um, and as a result, he will be demoted. But at this point, he's still holding all these areas. Okay, now let's go into. We're slowly moving in to the Mycenaean perspectives, but it still has echoes of the Minoan. So we're moving into this period of time. And well, let's look at the word Poseidon. Poseidon. Well, the word Posis, the word Posis, we get the word potus, right? And it can mean a spouse, one that gives a the starts things going, right? And so that's the word pos. What about the other part? What about the Iden part? Let's go there just for a few moments. So here we go. More etymology, right? Okay, so as I said, posis can mean spouse or husband. The second part, so you have pos, Iden. Where does the Iden come from? Well, it turns out that there is a mountain in the middle of Crete known as Mount Ida. Mount Ida. It's sacred to the Minoans. It's really important. It is, of course, to them. Right? In fact, we find sanctuaries along the perimeter of Mount Ida that go back into prehistory. Special knowledge was supposed to be gained from the caves that skirt this mighty Mount Ida. And so there is an association. It means spouse of Ida, the spouse of Ida. What's Ida? You know, we take the word Ida, which does seem to be connected to Mount Ida. When we go a little bit further, and we realize the word Ida is connected to the word da, Ida, 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 da. So what does da mean? Da means earth. Da means earth. So you have this concept that wait a minute. So that means that Mount Ida is Mount Earth, right? Mount Earth. Well, that's interesting. Mount Earth. Let's go a little bit further than that. Well, the word Ida, you got da again, which means it means so you have sorry you got the idea that da means earth. Well, what happens is da will also use the consonant ga. So you not only have da, but you have ga, and ga we get the word Gaia. Get the word Gaia from that. So where are we going with this? Well, that means post-Iden means spouse, right? Spouse of the earth. It's the earth spouse, right? The earth spouse. This is interesting. So Poseidon is the spouse of the earth. Well, who's the spouse of the earth? Well, now we go a little bit further. You got da, and how you say earth when it comes to Mycenaean, mater, da mater. So that means, of course, da mater means earth mother. So Poseidon is the spouse of the earth mother. And we'll go a bit further and we'll see this early on. They will have Poseidon as the husband of Demeter. Are you guys getting the big deal about this? Wait a minute. So Poseidon is the husband of the Earth Mother, who is Demeter. Demeter, right? And so that's going to be interesting to follow this a little bit further. All right. So now you're going to have many ideas that people get upset. People are upset at supposedly Poseidon because he presided over the Minoan civilization, and now you have this big eruption going on at Thera, and the world changes quickly. Right? You have this huge earthquake, and then you have uh, the darkening of the skies and tsunamis and the silent rain of ash, and people are feeling despair, terror. Bad things are happening. And then for 3 subsequent years, you're going to have problems when it comes to the harvest. We know this even all the way to Egypt. It's a problem. And so many people say this is the beginning of the rocking of the world, Poseidon, and the beginning of how he becomes demoted. And so when the Mycenaeans arrive, he's starting to move on the way down from a sky and earth and underworld deity. He's slowly moving to just being an earth in connection to the oceans. So it's gradual. Now we look at let's talk about Poseidon in connection to the Mycenaeans. We have inscriptions from two places, Knossos and Pylos. At Knossos, we find linear bead tablets that in the form of various lists. Poseidon appears by name at Knossos. We have his name, right? Already there, already exists. And it says what's sacrificed to him is an ox, a pig, and a sheep. Well, what? That looks like a demotion to me, right? So he's not doing very well. So when the Mycenaeans arrive at the center of the Minoan civilization, and one of the pivotal areas happens to be Knossos, Poseidon, they're not giving him bulls anymore. They're giving him, well, pigs, sheep, and ox, right? We also see it very prominent at uh, here at Knossos. They say Zeus is very prominent. And we also find references to uh, Nia, which is the mistress, right? Or the mistress, and various references. We'll have reference to a mistress, Potnia, Athena, or mistress of Athens, or Atana. We get the word Athena. You even have a Potnia, a mistress of the labyrinth. Okay, so that's important. Okay, so, but when it comes to Poseidon, he's mentioned, but at the center, this former center of the Minoan world, he's not as pivotal. But he's still pivotal in a place, not the islands, but a place called Pylos, right? At Pylos, which of course is connected to Nestor, right? King Nestor, right? Pylos, we have the remnant during the Mycenaean time. This is very important. The remnant of Poseidon being very pivotal. In fact, we have over 1,000 tablets from Pylos dating from 1300 to 1200 BCE. Of course, Zeus is still very powerful. He's very prominent uh, at Pylos too, and he is paired with a god by the name of Hera. In fact, Zeus and Hera share a sanctuary together. He does seem to be connected to the sky. So already during the Mycenaean period, it looks like slowly, gradually, Zeus has taken over the sky position, which means by default, Poseidon will gain the realm of the earth and the realm of the sea and the underworld. And that's exactly what we see the evidence for. So he's just losing his status gradually. We also see that Zeus is depicted as a male god, but Zeus is also depicted as a female goddess too. Zeus has two aspects, a male and a female aspect. His female aspect is known as the Ouija, right? Or Ouija, right? This is, in fact, the Ouija, the Ouija of Zeus, even receives her own special sanctuary. Wow. Okay. Thus, we also find other gods mentioned like Dionysus. But it does appear that the most prominent god worship Pylos is Poseidon. Yeah, Poseidon, known as Poseidon, right? And as I mentioned, Odysseus describes Nestor making great sacrifices to Poseidon, and the city certainly fits the description. We look at the inscriptions and we realize quite a bit that Poseidon was here called the earth shaker. As I said before, Inisi Deone, right? Inisi Deone, right? The idea is that he is the earth shaker. So he has this underworld conception. Hey, you're wondering, hey, Dr. Rita, where's Hades? He's not there yet. He's not there yet. So he will evolve a little bit later. So at this point, it's Poseidon, as he's demoted, is connected to the underworld. In fact, let's go a little bit further. We find that Poseidon was declared as a Wanax. Wanax, what does Wanax mean? Wanax means Lord or King in Mycenaean. He's declared as Wanax of the underworld. Poseidon, absolutely 100% at this time, under the Mycenaeans, is an underworld deity, as well as connected to the sea. Now, there was a cult associated with Poseidon, and they call association was known as the Poseidonius, and they did various rituals. We have references to what's called the spreading of the bed ritual, the spreading of the bed ritual. I wonder what that involved, right? There's another one. We know that there's lots of oil used for libations in connection to this spreading the sheets ritual. Who knows what that means, right? Another celebration at Pylos was called the Festival of Bearing the Throne Around. That's connected. So, but like Zeus, Poseidon was also worshipped in female form at Pylos. It's called Poseida, Poseida or Poseija, right? In fact, this female aspect of Poseidon also had a separate sanctuary called the Pykiani, located somewhere in Pylos. In fact, there happen to be 45 slaves specifically belong to this sanctuary. That's amazing. We even find exactly what they offered Poseidon at these temples. And I'm going to tell you right now what they are. You're learning a lot here, right? Well, we have four lists. The first list mentions that they offer to Poseidon wheat. Then next they offer wine, and then they offer one bull. So hey, not offering pigs now. They're offering a bull. And then fourth, 10 cheeses. And then fifth, one ram's fleece. And finally, sixth, honey. A second offering lists again wheat first, wine second. In this case, 2 rams, 5 cheeses, oil, and 1 ram's fleece. A third offering is corn, wine, and 2 rams. And finally, the fourth offering is corn, wine, 5 cheeses, and honey. So if you're a vegetarian, a fourth offering is for you. So if you can't do that, right? So this is remarkable because we find from this list, right, that the offerings follow the tradition of ancient Greece. Because in classical Greece, they always offered the grain offerings first. And take a look. I'm looking at this, and they're offering wheat first or barley first on the list, corn, right? And the second, they offer libations. Well, I'm taking a look at this list, and wine, right? Let's see here. Wine. Well, we have libations second. So they continue that tradition. Third is the animal sacrifice. And I look on the it's 1 through 3, and animal sacrifice is the third. And then, of course, the bloodless offerings following that. So this idea continued all the way into classical Greece and even further. But we know that now you know exactly what they offered Poseidon during the Mycenaean period. Are you excited or not? I mean, this is great, right? Also, we have references to Artemis from Pylos as well. And we also find references to the Potnia of the grain, the mistress of the grain, who is Demeter. And Demeter, who is she paired with? Poseidon, of course, right? Poseidon is connected to the underworld. And so through this underworld connection and the earth, he's connected to Poseidon. So this is interesting, right? In fact, Poseidon talks about the fact that we have some lists here. List of goods from Pylos reveals that there was a destination for these goods to the quote, two queens, the two queens and Poseidon, and also another to the two queens and the king. The two queens, most scholars will believe, assert that the two queens, one is Demeter and the other is her daughter Persephone. Is this interesting? Right. So already you're getting to the way that's Poseidon. Why is Poseidon connected to? Oh, we're back to he is the conception is he's still the spouse, the husband of the earth. Okay. Well, this tradition continues. Even though the Mycenaeans, it will end after the fall of the Mycenaeans and the Sea People. The tradition continues on in the area of Arcadia in Greece. It retained the legend, yeah, of Demeter as connected to Poseidon. Yep. In fact, they still have a child together, known as the mistress. Yeah, right. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Also known, so story goes as follows. According to the tale, Poseidon, in the form of a stallion, pursues the mare, who is Demeter. Of course, obviously, she runs and she hides with the horses that are ranging amongst the king of Oncium. His name is Onychios, and this is in Arcadia. But even amongst all the horses, you're not going to fool Poseidon. So Demeter's true divinity shows through. And so Poseidon, as the stallion, finds her, catches her, and mounts her. So we have, unfortunately, they have the rape of Poseidon, Poseidon of Demeter, right? Demeter, so angry, she literally becomes furious. I mean, in fact, she becomes Demeter Erinis, or Demeter of the Furies, and she wants to have vengeance for being defiled. Eventually, she calms down and she bathes herself, and then she becomes Demeter Lausia, or the bathed Demeter. But now she is pregnant and she bears Despoinia. She bears the mistress, and so you have again the story, and it continues. It continued into the time of Greece, all the way to the 2nd century CE. So yeah, you do have remnants of these early stories that continue on, right? Okay, now we move on to some other stories. So I want to make sure we get here. Now, Athena, let's go there. The mistress Athena. Well, what happens is that Persephone, it was used interchangeably with the person or the goddess that's earlier on known as Athena. But this is going to be really complicated. So follow along if you can, right? According to Libyan tradition, we talked about Libya already. The goddess Athena, the goddess Athena was believed to be the daughter of Poseidon and Tritonis. Tritonis was a goddess nymph of the saltwater lake of Tritonis in Libya, which is in North Africa. And the story goes as follows: is that uh, the Libyans worshipped a god by the name of Triton, who is the sea god, but they interchanged Triton. I know that's obviously the son of sorry, brain just died. Son, the the son of Poseidon. But what will happen is that the long and the short of it is that eventually, before that, so earlier on, it was connected to Poseidon. Now the story goes as follows: it's written by Herodotus, that next to those known as Malechians are the Asians. These and the Malechians dwell around the lake Tritonis, and the river Triton is the boundary between them. At a yearly festival of Athena, her maidens take their stand in two parties and fight against one another with stones and staves. And they say that in doing so, they are fulfilling the rites handed down by their fathers for the divinity who was sprung from the land, who we call Athena. And those of the maidens who die of the wounds receive what they call false maidens. Now, they have, of course, a procession that moves around, but they say, I'm still reading the same source. They said Athena is a daughter of Poseidon and of the lake Tritonis, and that she had some cause of complaint against her father, Poseidon, and therefore gave herself to Zeus. And then Zeus made her his own daughter, such as the story which they tell. What? So in this story, written down by Herodotus, it says that Athena is born of Poseidon, but decides that she's going to disown her father because of a disagreement and claim Zeus instead. Right? Well, this is fascinating, right? And of course, the connection with Libya goes back to whether it be Atlantis or the Minoans. It's still a very important remnant. A lot of people will not gather. Right? Let's go a little bit further. Well, what happens is that long and the short of it is that you're going to have two traditions that will grow up. That the daughter of Poseidon, Athena, is declared as having blue eyes, while that who is connected to Zeus is depicted as having gray eyes. You guys following that? So Pausanias, a description of Greece, says, I saw that the statue of Athena had blue eyes. The Libyans have a saying that the goddess is the daughter of Poseidon, and for this reason has blue eyes like Poseidon. Now, of course, you see also Athena is connected to Triton, or the word Triton. And so as a result, here we go. Just hold on. Back to the Triton, to the word Triton. So this name Triton appears all over Greece. All over Greece, they name many rivers or wells Triton, right? And even in Crete, in Thessaly, Boeotia, Arcadia, Egypt, right? Um, and the story goes is that, well, hey, wasn't Athena, the Libyans, born around Tritonis, around the lake? Yes. So that idea that she's born around that lake, around the body of water, will spread to Greece, and so all these places where there happens to be springs or these rivers, people will say, well, who's born here? Athena is born here, and that spreads. It becomes part of popular knowledge. Well, the problem is that the word trite, right? Triton, trite, in Cretan, in Aeolic, in Boeotian, the word trite is not just mean spring, it means head, right? The head. Are you following? And so what will happen is they'll say, so Athena is born from the spring. She is born from the head. And hello, she switched, father. She got rid of Poseidon. I gave you the evidence there. She is acknowledged as gaining or claiming Zeus. And so now being, this ownership aspect starts to morph into a legend where Athena is born out of the head of Zeus. There, mystery solved. It's kind of a big deal. So you see, you had to follow this, right, along. Okay. Also, we're going to see that Poseidon will eventually be connected to a god by the name of Neptune. This is, of course, the Latin word, Neptunus, which may derive from the Indo-European root, neb, which means wet or damp or clouds. In fact, the word Neptune means he who is moist. So the Etruscans also have a deity known as Nethanus, right, who is the god of the wells. By the way, there's a Celtic god of the wells by the name of Necton, because they're all Indo-Europeans. Okay, so, but what happens now? It's very interesting. Is Neptune in this idea is related to will become related to not just not just to the idea of moistness. But this Neptune, many of its origins connect to the clouds and the sky and the rain. So this Neptunus is connected to rain. But what about Zeus? Well, in this ancient idea, Zeus is connected to when it's daylight, when there's day. And then Neptunus is connected to Zeus will become Jupiter. So Jupiter is a god deity of the daylight, of the sun. And Neptunus is the idea earlier on. He's connected as the god of the clouds, of the rain. And of course, the results of that rain obviously will be, will be water, on the ocean, springs and rivers and so forth. He's also, this Neptunus is connected to this female aspect known as Salicia, which means lustful, desiring sexual intercourse. And so Salicia then represents Neptune's desire for intercourse with the earth. It's his viral aspect that is there. We'll go more into that maybe in a little bit. So you do have these kind of mixtures. We're back to Tarhunas of the Hittites, because Tarhunas is both connected to, he's called the god of the heavily damp or the heavily wet, as a generator of life. And so he's also known as the Lord of Sky Wet. So we're going back that of course, the Hittites are Indo-Europeans. And so these derivatives, these Indo-European derivatives go all the way to the West. Okay. We also find that Neptune, in this case, is connected to the trident. So this is where this appears. The god Poseidon, who now becomes Neptune in the West. The two actually merged together, we know, by 399 BCE, where Neptune and Poseidon are looked at or viewed as one and the same, right? So let's talk about some aspects. Because I know it's 9:30, but we got started at 15 minutes late. So we're going to go to 9:45, because otherwise it'll be a shorter talk than you expected. So hope that's okay. So 9:45, we'll finish. Okay, so here we go. So Poseidon is easily identified by his trident, and he uses it to shatter rocks and call forth and subdue storms and shake the earth and other kinds of things, right? He is also clothed in a what's called a chiton, or in a cloak, or sometimes he's just depicted nude, right? He is the one that people call upon In danger, he's the one who gathers the clouds and calms the storms, but he's also the one who calls back the storms. So there still is a sky aspect to him in many ways. Unlike Zeus, he's not exactly a figure of majestic calm. In fact, he is as the sea, as the ocean. So, the sea can be raging, a tempest, terrible, and so of course Poseidon's going to have this very angry aspect, this wild aspect, and other times the ocean is calm and serene. So Poseidon will have this aspect as well. So wherever the sea is, that he is. So he's extremely emotional uh, as a god, right? Poseidon, he is. There's many songs dedicated to Poseidon. Now, the Homeric hymn 22 dates from the 600s BCE, and it still kind of shows him as still a earth underwater, sorry, earth god as well as a sea god. So he loses the sea aspect, but he's still connected in many ways to not only the sea, but the underworld and the earth. We see this again in Homeric hymn 22, dedicated to Poseidon, and I shall read as follows. I began to sing about Poseidon, the great god, mover of the earth and the fruitless sea, god of the deep, who is also Lord of Helicon and wide Aegea, O shaker of the earth, to be a tamer of horses and the savior of ships. Hail Poseidon, holder of the earth, dark-haired Lord, O blessed one, be kindly in heart and help those who voyage in ships. So you can see still there's this other chthonic aspect. But by the time we get to the Orphic hymns, around 200 BCE, it seems that he's becoming more and more connected to just the ocean. So there is an evolution. Here, Poseidon, ruler of the sea profound, whose liquid grasp begirds the solid ground, who at the bottom of the stormy main, dark and deep bosom holdest they watery rain. Thy awful hand the brazen trident bears, and sea's utmost bound thy will reveres. Thee, O I invoke, whose steeds the foam divide, from whose dark locks the briny waters glide. Show voice, loud sounding through the roaring deep, drives all its billows in a raging heap. When fiercely riding through the boiling sea, thy horse command, the trembling waves obey. Earth-shaking, dark-haired God, the liquid plains, the third division, fate to thee ordains. I mean, this is just, tis thine Cerilius daemon to survey will please the monsters of the ocean play. The firm earth, and it goes on and on. Earth spaces with prosperous scales, waves ships along, and swells the spacious sails. Add gentle peace and fair-haired health besides, and pour abundance in a blameless tide. So there you have it. So very much more of the ocean right at that point. We also realize that he is very strongly connected to dolphins. We find that in Alien, in his work. So he mentions the fact that the dolphins love or lovers of music, and they are his constant companions. In fact, Alien mentions as follows. He said, Lord of the sea, Poseidon, of the golden trident, earthshaker, in the swelling brine, around thee the finny monsters, finny monsters, in a ring swim and dance. Yeah, dolphins seem to swim and dance, don't they? With nimble flingings of their feet leaping lightly, snub-nosed hounds. I love that. They call dolphins snub-nosed hounds with bristling neck, swift runners, music-loving dolphins, sea nurslings of nurses, maids divine, and goes on. So it's interesting. As you know, Poseidon was born, as I said, son of Kronos and Rhea. We have the story that um, Poseidon was swallowed by his father Kronos at birth, but Zeus escaped. Well, guess what? There's another version of the story where not just Zeus escaped, but Poseidon escaped, and he was turned into a horse in his place. So while Zeus is replaced by a stone, Poseidon is replaced by a young horse, of course, and there Kronos swallows that instead. So you still have these early legends where Zeus and Poseidon are still kind of put equally, right? Zeus and Poseidon fight the Titans together, right? So uh, Zeus, so Poseidon has this reputation where he just likes to attack the various giants by throwing islands at them or portions of islands. So we have these stories where he grabs a part of an island and he throws them at these giants, and they're splat. That's it, right? There you have it. When it comes to the palace of Poseidon, is believed to be located in the depths of the sea near Aegea and Euboea. This is where he kept his horses with brazen hoofs and golden manes, right? And we do have a quick story. I'll bring it up. Guess what? Remember Poseidon and Athena don't get along very well? Well, remnants of this do go in to the story in relation to Athens, the foundation story, right? So Poseidon enters a contest against Athena over control of Athens. And so they're each supposed to give a gift. And Poseidon, what he says that will benefit humanity. Poseidon, he will give the horse. He believes that will benefit humanity. And Athena, she's going to give is the olive. Well, guess what? They choose the olive over the horse. And so, well, the city of Athens then chooses Athena over Poseidon. Well, he gets mad. And according to one story, he floods the place. The tree connected, the first olive tree was planted upon the Acropolis area. And supposedly, even though the Persians and others burned it down, saplings grew and continued on there and so forth. Okay. As I mentioned, Poseidon is connected to horses. In fact, it is believed that he taught men the art of managing horses with the bridle. So there you have that. Many scholars believe that Poseidon arrived, some believe this, with the Indo-Europeans, and that he was the tamer of horses. He's the one who brought the idea of the domestication of horses to the Indo-Europeans, and they spread it to others. And then, of course, using the bridle. Who knows? I don't know. But moving on, you're going to have, when it comes to Poseidon, we talked about the Neptune aspect in Italy. I want to mention that when it came to the worship of deity connected to the waters, the Latins originally worshipped a god by the name of Consus, and his underground altar was located in the valley of the Circus Maximus at the foot of the Palatine Hill. But what will happen is that Consus will blend with Neptune dash Poseidon. Remember, Neptunus is connected to the moisture of the clouds above within the Italian realms, right? But now it's being brought down to the earth, so to speak, with this connection with Consus. And Consus was connected directly to the earth deity known as Ceres, who, by the way, is Demeter. So it is, in that sense, once again, we're back to Poseidon as connected to Demeter. I mean, these ideas happen over and over again. When we get to the story of the the story of Troy, I want to say that it is Poseidon who builds the walls of Troy, as asked by King Lomedon. Um, but he was supposed to be paid, and the king didn't want to pay him. And as a result, he went against the Trojans. And whose side was he on? Obviously, he is on the side of the Greeks as a result of that betrayal. And but unfortunately, a guy by the name of Odysseus on his journey home after the sack of Troy. He blinds Poseidon's son, Polyphemus, the one-eyed Cyclops, right? And as a result, Poseidon moved against uh, uh, Odysseus. By the way, uh, Polyphemus, as I said, was the son of Poseidon uh, through the mother nymph known as Thusa. By the way, the name Thusa derives from the Greek word swift. It refers to the swift currents of the sea, right? If, and Poseidon had many lovers. I want to mention a few. Well, first of all, he had his wife. His wife by the name of Amphitrite. Amphitrite, interesting name, but the word trite at the end. Kind of remembers of the Triton idea, the Tritonus idea of Libya. Anyway, Amphitrite. And they had three children together. Triton, remember Triton again, Rhode, and Bensime. So again, you have this Triton connection, which is, instead of Triton being another word for Poseidon from the Libya context, right? Now it personifies as a son, but still you have this legacy that goes on, which is amazing, right? Okay, so what happens is that she is known as beautiful, light of foot, and they fall in love. Well, actually, he chases her. She finally gives in. This is usually what happens right there. And dolphins are the ones that help convince his soon-to-be wife that just give Poseidon a try. And because of that, Poseidon really loves dolphins, right? More stories here as we go along. Uh, of course, we have Triton. Triton, the son of Poseidon, is kind of like his right-hand man. So when the Lord of the Seas, Poseidon, laid his three-pronged spear and calmed the waves, he called from the deep Triton to bring about order after the great deluge. Um, so it was the combination of father and son that calmed things down. Also, Triton, his son, helped him fight against the giants. We have, of course, I want to make sure we cover some other of these stories here. We're almost done. We have also Medusa. One of his lovers was Medusa. She's one of three sisters, Stheno, Uriel, of course, Medusa. And unfortunately, it says, according to Hesiod, right? Poseidon, he of the dark hair, lay with one of these, the Gorgon Medusa, in a soft meadow and among spring flowers. But as we know from Ovid, uh, we see that she, Medusa, it said, was violated in Minerva or Athena's shrine by the Lord of the Sea, and which is Poseidon. Zeus's daughter turned away and covered with her shield her virgin eyes, and then for fitting punishment transformed Gorgio's lovely hair into loathsome snakes. And so Athena, because of the violation of Medusa, you know, by by uh, by Poseidon, will turn her into this scary snake-like snake hair and turning people into stone. There you have it. So once again, are you seeing this connection or this fight between Poseidon and Athena, or is it just me? You never thought you'd make this connection, and now you're hearing this lecture and you're realizing this. Oh yes, yes, Poseidon. Sorry, it's hard to keep the two straight because they're always going into everybody. Poseidon also had a relationship with Aphrodite after he kind of defended Ares and Aphrodite after they were caught by Hephaestus making love. He defended them, and then of course, Poseidon enters into that scene. So there you have it. There is also stories of Poseidon falling in love with this Meretes, this handsome man who he loved very much, and they traveled together. And when all his Poseidon moved through the sea, and there's all these sea animals surrounding him on all sides, and seahorses and dolphins. He always had his favorite in front. And of course, unfortunately, Helios, the sun god, got upset by that. and transformed his lover into a shell. Well, then, of course, we have a few other interesting stories. I mean, he was with Anemone, right? He was with uh, Aeronome. He was with Horinus, who turned herself into a crow. He was with Media, uh, and uh, and he was also with with excuse me. Well, actually, let's look at the Media. And we'll finish. I want to hear this part, and then I'll just kind of wrap things up. Um, According to the story, Pseudo Apollodorus writes that Alios married Tripot's daughter, Epimedia, who, however, was in love with Poseidon. She would go down to the sea, gather the waves in her hands, and pour the water upon her female member. Poseidon then mated with her and fathered two sons, Otis and Ephaotus. Each year, these lads grew 2 feet in width and 6 feet in length. So we have that interesting story. So, don't spend too much time on the beach there. Okay, moving right along. One last thought. We're at the end. Promise, right? I will say that Poseidon Neptune, within a Roman context, was accompanied by the Peridre. The Peridre, these are pairs of spirits or entities who oftentimes accompany various gods and goddesses. For Neptune, these spirits were Cilicia, as I mentioned, and Vanilia. Okay, so Cilicia, this spirit that accompanied uh, Poseidon, would impersonate the gushing, overbearing waters. So she was the overpowering waters. So she represents that. While Amelia represented the still or quiet waters. And they had various festivals that were connected to these particular spirits, right? And of course, as we sum up, as we close up, I would just say that obviously the sacrifice of bulls were central to the mysteries of Poseidon. Fishermen worshiped Poseidon. There were festivals all over the Greek world. Corinth was very much focused upon the worship of Poseidon as a god. He was popular in that respect. Even there was even a giant statue of Poseidon by the Pharaoh's lighthouse. But what I want to do, I'm closing up now. We're over. I want to say that what we've done is I know it seems very complicated, but I'm glad we're able to work through this because it's very rare. You're not going to hear what you just heard almost anywhere else because it is literally a labyrinth of information. But what we're seeing here through the evidence is a gradual de-evolution of Poseidon. He starts off as his premier deity, connected to the sky, connected to the earth and sea, and connected to the underworld. He is the tripartite god of the Minoans. And we see this continuing at first during the time of the Mycenaeans. But gradually, maybe because of the eruption of Thera, maybe not, we're going to see that his sky aspect will be allocated to Zeus, while he will retain the realm as Earthshaker, the realm of the underworld, and the realm of the sea. He's connected to the earth. We also see early on that the mate of Poseidon is the meter. He is the spouse of the earth mother. They're together and they have a child, and their child is Persephone, right? Or Kor, or the mistress, or the maiden. But that this idea is interchangeably connected to Atata or Athena. And so Athena earlier on is connected to this concept, right? And this idea of this connection between Poseidon and Demeter continues on in Arcadia. But the connection with Athena continues on in Libya, but still informs, in many ways, ideas related to Greece. Now, we get into the Greek Dark Ages, and things are not going very well for Poseidon. What will happen is eventually Hades is introduced. When Hades is introduced, he takes over the realm of the underworld. Zeus is connected to the sky, and by default, he gets stuck with the sea, right? That's his area. And so it happens so gradually. I mean, it's so gradual. But then he just becomes like this moody god, that is, slightly, he's more emotional, less than Zeus, kind of looks like Zeus. And he's just connected to the ocean. Yet, in many respects, there still is an aspect where he has control of the clouds. Even in the form of Neptunus, he still has some kind of sky power. When we have he just doesn't control the waters and the waves, right? The tidal forces. He also connects or controls clouds as they connect with that. So he is connected still to the watery realms, whether it is on sky or whether it is on earth. But it is a gradual de-evolution that goes all the way back to the time of the Minoans. And I hope you have enjoyed the unpacking of this mystery and have realized that when it comes to any kind of religion, even Greco-Roman religions, there is the sense of evolution. It doesn't stay the same. And we always have to respect that. Thank you. All right. There you go. Here we go. You heard stuff that you probably would never hear anywhere else. You're welcome, Cindy. Yeah. So, and you'll never think of Athena the same again either. What? Athena? Connected to what? A mistress? Connected to what? Persephone? Connected to, what? And you're going, poor? How is this possible? Well, I'm great having you here, Sonia. We go through the evolution, and I took the time, and to make sure that you could follow this gradual evolution. What I didn't mention either was the fact that both Zeus and Poseidon have male and female aspects, even into the Mycenaean period. I find that interesting too. Thank you, Laurel, for being here. So, yeah. So you have that. Any questions?
Nope. See ya.
Thank you, Sonia, for being here.
Yeah, it's good to see you, Sonia.
You too.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Thomas. Thank you so much for being here.
I have a question.
Yes.
So do you believe that the evolution of the demotion of Poseidon was motivated by maybe even a subconscious movement towards monotheism, such as the focus on Zeus, or do you think it was maybe a cultural demotion to eliminate previous cultures, and maybe even eliminate some of their impact, and I provide for maybe a re-identification of the religion?
Well, it's actually that's a great question, and it's worth unpacking. So we'll unpack it. Okay, so what happens is that we absolutely do know. By the time we get to the pre-Socratic philosophers, and we're getting to Socrates or to Plato and others, we do know that Zeus is starting to take a place of kind of like the god that's beyond the gods. So you already have that conception coming about. So there is that move towards maybe kind of like monotheism, but the idea is you have the origin of all things, just kind of like with Brahma, right? It's kind of like, so it becomes more and more philosophical as time goes on. And so he becomes a god that stands behind the gods. And so he's inclusive. He becomes inclusive of not just in charge of the sky, but he is in charge. He's the superior god. He is over all the other gods. He is the father of all the gods. And Poseidon and Hades are lesser, and they're jealous. In fact, one time Zeus says, "You know what I'm going to do? I'm tired of Poseidon. I'm going to do something terrible to him." And Poseidon is kind of resentful. Poseidon doesn't have as much power as Zeus as time goes on, so he can't even challenge him. So there is that aspect of it's easier to have this concept of the God behind the gods to appeal in a philosophical sense. And so you're going to have, if you read in Greek, various philosophers who are talking about God. If you take a look, the word that they use for God is just simply Zeus. So there is this concept there. There is this sense of evolution, but at the same time, there are cultural reasons for this too. You're going to have Poseidon, his background goes back to the Minoans. It's pretty hard to not say that. There's even more evidence. And it's interesting because we're looking at evidence of the legacies, whether it be in Arcadia or Libya, or in these stories that are told by Plato about Atlantis, or we find the iconography in the Minoans that connects to Poseidon that we know for sure when we go to Linear B are connected to Poseidon. So we know through that legacy that have that. But you see, it seems like the Mycenaeans, except for Pylos, are not too crazy about Poseidon. And so there is this shift where we're going to move to our Zeus, our sky god. I mean, think about it. We don't have any conception of a sky god within the Minoan culture, right? Except for the fact, unless he's only a sky god. We have the idea that he's connected to the sky, he's connected to the earth, and he's connected to the underworld. We have the tripartite division idea, but the idea of just singular sky conception. And in many cases, he's tethered to this idea of Poseidon. He is the spouse. He is the husband of the earth, mother. Who's they, earth, mater, mother, Demeter, which is Demeter. He's the spouse, which seems like he's the guy that just kind of contributes to he's a sperm donor, to the earth. So he has still the strong connection to the earth, but he's also connected to the sky. And I think that also we talked about Neptunus. Most likely, this connection, as echoed through Neptunus, connects to Poseidon, which is that he's probably connected to not only to the sky during the Minoan period of time, but he's connected to the clouds above, right? The rain, right? The moisture. Well, here comes the Mycenaeans. Here comes the Indo-Europeans, and they bring with them Zeus, and it's possible that the Minoans are not happy with Poseidon anyway because they worship Poseidon and their civilization was destroyed. Poseidon may not have been a very good steward of his dominion, so he's downcast already there. So maybe they weren't that excited about him. But what happens now? Zeus goes, and the Mycenaeans really put Zeus on a pedestal over Poseidon, and you can see this at Kenosis. And you see this in the inscriptions in Linear B and other places. But the exception is Pylos for some reason, where Nestor is from. There, it seems that Poseidon is still really important and continues on to have that significance that he had prior to during the time of the Minoans. But with the time of the Sea People, when they hit, what happens then? Well, then at that point, Poseidon sinks a little bit lower. I hope I'm making sense. So you're having cultural shifts that is involved. And so you have other cultures that seem to be wanting to demote, or I should say the Indo-Europeans seem to be wanting to demote Poseidon and to shake him out of the sky and make him just the earth shaker, connected to the underworld, as we know from the inscriptions, and connected to the ocean. And then eventually, as we follow this, is more and more he's connected to just the sea. It gets really sad. Let's make this worse. He connects to the sea, but Oceanus is then connected to Titan, who's connected to the encircling sea. all around. So Poseidon's like, well, great. So I'm just this immediate sea, but not the deeper sea. And we see this earlier on that we know that Poseidon was connected to the realm of the lower seas, the encircling sea. But now that's given to Oceanus, who he did, marry the daughter of Oceanus, or so yeah, the granddaughter of Oceanus. This is fascinating. So, am I answering your question?
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. I've also seen and been, fascinated about the evolution of Poseidon almost into Christianity. I mean, you talk about the water of life, the Trinity, the Holy Trinity, and the Trident, and it just seems like there's a direct correlation or an evolution of some sense, obviously not directly, from the Poseidon theory and concept into that Christianity hold. And it's fascinating to see how strong Poseidon. I didn't realize his origins were as such a strong figure, and so that's just very, very eye-opening. Thank you.
Yeah, very strong. And I want to build on what you just said. You're going to have this idea of Zeus. In a philosophical sense, he becomes this great god, right? And he's still, in a sense, connected to the realms of the heaven, right? So then of course, you're going to have, what do? They need to have an aspect of himself reaches towards the earth, right? So reaches down to the earth. And that, of course, will be interpreted different ways. By the time you get to Plato, right? That's the demiurge. But before that, Heraclitus of Ephesus, it's known as the Logos, right? From Zeus. Remember, Heraclitus of Ephesus, who lives from the 500 to the 400s BCE, he says that God is Zeus and not Zeus. So he does give the label, but he says that the Zeus is when he created the world, he spoke, and that was the word, which we say in Greek logos. So you have this aspect of himself that comes from the sky and reaches down to the earth, right? And then you have eventually this idea goes into Plato, and it goes into the idea that it's the demiurge, and then it goes into Philo of Alexandria, who's this first century BCE, first century CE Jewish writer, and the idea is that the God Yahweh is tripartite. He is the monad. He is the one, and coming from the monad is the logos, and from there, arriving from there is what is connected to is immersed within the earth, which is interesting. Now we're going somewhere, and then this idea will go into the Gospel of John. In the beginning was the Word was with God, the Word was God. And then this idea also connects to the concept of the Holy Spirit, which is connected to, well, hello, the reception of the earth. So you have that which is above, reaching down that which is below, and then the reception of that. And
Yeah.
Does that help?
Yeah, it's so intriguing to see how it all ties together. I mean, it all kind of bleeds into each other and overlaps and touches each other. Thank
Yes.
you.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, the name Zeus, goes further back, right? So we go back to the Indo-European, and the word is Deos, and Deos is the Proto-Indo-European word for sky, and it was Deus Pitar. So it's Deus means sky, and Pitar means father. So sky father. Yeah. So, and then later on, Deus becomes the higher part becomes Deus or Zeus. The lower part becomes the lower ones become the Theos, as in theology. And then this idea of the Zeus Pitar will go to Illyria and then to the world of the Romans, and will go from Zeus Pitar to Jupiter, all high father, the sky father, which of course we get the word day, right? Say the word, remember when we say day in English, right? That has the same root as Deus. So we're saying day, which means sky. Yeah. And of course, Pitter, Potter, Petner, Vater, father, right? The same roots, Mitter, Mater, Mutter, mother. So
like all these religions have a giant Venn diagram.
yeah. So I've done this. I've done diagrams and how these connections go together. But yeah. So there has to be. I mean, humanity. We look at the sky, going, well, that's one realm.
Yep.
we look at the earth, well, the ocean, well, that's another realm, and go, hey, there's something under it, So it's natural for us to divide the world into three parts.
Yep.
And we're going to see this also in the religion of the Canaanites. The Canaanites will divide the world into three parts too. So each under their own particular god. And of course, the highest god is El, and of course, El is Elam, which we get the word, Allah from. And it's also Israel. It just simply means God in the Semitic languages. So same root. So yeah, but you have this again tripartite divisions throughout the world, and we look again at the partition of the earth, and it seems obvious. Now there seems to be kind of a flip side. People go sky, sea, earth. Other people go sky, earth, land, and underworld. So you're going to have variations of these themes, and these variations do connect to Poseidon. So Poseidon sometimes seems to be connected to the ocean and the land, earth, and then the underworld is separate. And sometimes it's understood that the ocean and the earth is connected to the underworld as one. So it just depends on what writer you're talking about. Any other questions?
Thank you for taking the time to walk through that.
Absolutely, Jack.
I have a question.
Sure. Laurel.
Did they worship Poseidon in North Africa apart from in Greek colonies, or did he have a counterpart in the religions there?
Yeah, so the answer to the question is in North Africa, in Libya, he's worshipped as Tritonus Triton. And the word Triton, that's Libya. He was worshipped as that. And they connected that worship, Triton, with that being Poseidon. So Triton is Poseidon. Later on, it will evolve that Triton is not another word for Poseidon. It will evolve that Triton will be the son of Poseidon. The name will still be there. It still continues on. So in the Libyan version of North Africa, he is Tritonus. You have so you have Triton, Tritonus, which is connected to, of course, it's the same name, by the way, as the female aspect. In fact, you take a look at it. You got we go back into my notes here, so I'm going to go back just for a few seconds. I want to make sure where am I here? I'm in front of all you guys doing a talk, right? Let's see here. You can find it here. Let's have the Libya. Maybe I don't. Oh, okay. What's here? Yeah, I'll find it. Give me a few seconds here. I'm looking at Atlantis. That's there. Get that there. Labyrinth, double axe, Poseidon, and offerings, Neptune. Oh, okay. So I'll find it. I love it. So what I do is I write these notes, but I also write notes on top of my notes. So it does. My notes are literally, I would say, a possible labyrinth. You can imagine here. Media thing. Okay, got it, Livia. Okay, you ready? Okay, so here it is. Okay, so the names, here we go. Okay, so the names are as follows. Okay, so the name here, okay, so the name is Tritonus, or it could be just simply Triton. And then the female aspect is Tritonus. Sorry, mixed up the masculine and feminine, I apologize. So Tritonus and Tritonis. So one is US end and the other's IS end. Or in some cases, they drop the US and it just because it's the Latinization anyway, but they call him Triton, to the same name. So what you have is a masculine, in a sense, Triton and a feminine Triton. Now you should find that really interesting, and that is connected to Poseidon. Poseidon and his wife in North Africa which of course we could say Tritonus, right? Sorry. So what's interesting about this is, remember we went back to Mycenae. Remember at Pylos, remember that we had the worship of a masculine form of Poseidon and a feminine form? Well, look, it almost seems like this mirror effect idea discovered in Linear B from the Mycenaean civilization, Pylos, having a masculine and a feminine version of Poseidon is echoed here when you have the Tritonis, or Triton or Tritonus configuration. And of course, they give birth to Athena. Does that help? So yes. So if you, for easy reference, Poseidon in North Africa is Triton.
Thank you.
I don't know. We took a long time answering that question. I apologize. But I had to go with you on the journey. I want to make sure. I had to correct myself because I was feminizing Triton. Well, of course, then he was feminized, so maybe that's okay. he'll forgive me if he's going to my Noah and Mycenaean route. Any other questions?
I don't have a question, but I have a quick tidbit to share with you. I know you talked about the event that they would partake in where they would flip over the bulls.
Yes.
So the very first history book that I was ever bought when I was 8 years old, I don't know if you can see it, is this guy right here. This is born World of History.
Oh yeah, that's great.
And early on, you can see they're actually demonstrating that right there for talking about life on Crete. And so I just thought that was so interesting. I remembered that from my youth, that as soon as you talked about that, how that was an event that they would partake in to honor the gods.
Yeah.
And crazy. It struck me as just like you said, just as crazy to run at a bull and grab its horns and try to flip over it.
I don't think I see various images. I'm going, I don't know how they would do it. I'm looking at, I'll be honest, I'll look at the physics and I'm still not sure how they can do it. I mean,
no.
because you run towards a bull, chances are it's gonna throw you up.
No.
So maybe they're lying and it's actually they're coming from behind.
I don't know. The only thing I can think of is modern gymnasts when they land on the springboard and jump over the pommel horse. But
yeah,
not a skill set that I own. So
no. Oh no, and you can imagine also it's not just Minoan men; it's Minoan women who are doing this.
Yeah.
And remember, Minoan women are topless, so you can imagine how much pain you're going to feel afterwards. Sorry.
Absolutely.
No bra. So it's like, ow. Hopefully they did something. Hopefully they did something to make things easier and for the men too, right? How are you gonna, they're wearing kilts. So, I would not want to be a gymnast or somebody doing something that's related to sacred pageantry in that time. So I wouldn't want to. There also I alluded to something else, and that is you notice that reference in supposedly Atlantis of how they capture the bull, and they seem to be luring it and playing games with it until they're able to capture it with a noose. And aspects, I've actually had visited bullfighting when I was in Colombia one time. I got with the bullfight, and some of what I saw there reminded me of what's described, in this story. And I wonder if there's aspects of ancient beliefs and perspectives that are related to bullfighting in Spain. Obviously, the first time recorded that there's a bullfight officially is like under the Visigoths, but I know that. But then again, there seems to be also connections to fighting a bull within the Roman arenas, not only in Spain, but also in Italy, and there's also that connection within the Etruscan civilization, and we can go further back in Anatolia. And I'm thinking, hey, maybe bullfighting is because it's done in such a reverent way, even though it seems to be, it was an art.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of reminds me of a Minoan ritual, something I think the Minoans could do.
Yep. the modern perception is obviously brutality, but
Yeah.
as they say, perception isn't always truth, but it's the
Yeah.
reality we deal with. So it's all about the time frame in which you exist that defines how you perceive an event, an activity, or words that are spoken.
Yeah. Oh, I thought it was terrible. I had to close my eyes
Yeah.
when I saw it. So I was upset, but and I didn't want to go. I was forced to go. At the same time, watching what they're doing, there is a religious pageantry to bullfighting that seems to be that there's got to be something connected to ancient worship that's in this, and may go all the way back. We know that the Minoans were in Spain too, so who knows how many roots this idea could go. I doubt. Knowing the Romans, I really, really, really doubt that under the Visigoths is the first time you're going to have a bullfight. Because in fact, I read in ancient writers, they're talking about bullfights all the time. One place they mention it quite a bit, which is fascinating, is the center of a lot of bullfighting during Roman times, Africa. We're back to Libya. So, in fact, there seems to be something really interesting about Libya. It's a lost connection. We have these legacies connected to the Minoans, and I'm hoping that as maybe things get a little easier in Libya, that archaeologists and other researchers can do a little bit more work and see more about what's going on there. It's funny because whenever they mention Atlantis in the two times under Plato, they mention, and it gets all the way to Libya. They mention Libya by name. It's like, well, Libya seems to be center according to Plato. And then you also think to yourself, they mentioned the fact that when they're making this, how big is Atlantis? They say, oh, it's as big as Libya and Asia put together. Asia being Asia Minor, which is in Turkey. So, but Libya seems to have these early connections to Poseidon, and it seems I know that the Minoan civilization extended to that coastline. That because the Egyptians dominated, obviously, that part of the coastline, that the Minoans made a strong foothold right to the west of Egypt.
So it's basically like Egypt and Minoans compared to Carthage and Rome.
Right. Exactly.
I mean,
yeah, there's this balance going on there. There are stories where we find that the Egyptians are at odds with those in Libya and go all the way back to ancient mythology. And so maybe this was a foothold of the Minoans. Of course, you say maybe Atlantis. Well, Atlantis is the Minoans, and yeah, that works for me. Although I'm trying to figure out some of the other theories. So, because I believe Atlantis is connected directly to the Minoans. That's just me. The Getty Villa, which just reopened, has a Minoan artwork showing bull jumping. Well, I got to go see that. So that would be great. I wonder which depiction they'll show. Good job. Any other questions? Are you guys learning? Is this fun? Oh, a lot of information, huh?
Lots of good
My head
information.
always spins after these things. My brain is going around trying to process how much information you just crammed into 2 hours.
Yeah, there's a lot of mental digestion.
Yeah. Well, like I said, some of the themes I want to make sure that we remember is the cliff notes. Is that Poseidon and Demeter were the original couple, and they had a kid. That's Persephone. That also is core. It's also the mistress. That's also Athena, which is fascinating. And Athena herself, focus on Athena. Athena goes through an evolution herself, where she's at first the daughter of Poseidon, switches to Zeus, and then goes from the being connected to the waters, being connected to being sprung out of the head of Zeus, which is really strange. Things here. I'm just thinking about how much imagery and lore Poseidon shares with Paul Bunyan. Oh yeah, okay. yeah. Thank you, Dorian. Always fun. Yeah. Well, Poseidon has a tendency of having, I didn't mention this, he has a tendency of fathering giants. That's his other kind of situation. So there's a lot of stories where, if you mate with Poseidon, you're going to have huge kids. and they're not going to look very good. Sometimes they're oftentimes like big, ugly monsters. So be careful. Use protection. So Poseidon. There is a big blue ox. That's true. Oh, but yeah. Okay. Yeah, we're going there. Yeah. So, any other thoughts? No. Okay. Well, there you have it. So I will go ahead and as I see this talk, sinking,
Slowly into the west.
slowly into the west. The sunset. I will say, hopefully the talk did not sink under its own weight. Hopefully it was a Poseidon adventure, and hopefully that I made some waves. Oh, other than that, I will say so long and farewell. And as the tides turn, I'm off.